Hi guys, it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. Here's my face. Hi guys, it's Jess. Welcome to my channel, and this is actually super nerve-wracking to do. Oh, I just looked up and saw you. Luna. Okay. Can't do this. Yes, you can. Jessica. All right. Focus. Okay. Hi guys, it's me, Jess. Welcome back to my channel. I'm sure that you can see that it is a completely different day, and I'm sure you've already seen the struggle that was yesterday. I have curled my hair 2 days in a row. This madness needs to end. So I'm just going to, make this video and not worry about anything. Before I just start telling you a little bit about myself, I wanted to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It's so hard to not sound like a goof, but I really mean thank you so much for all of your love and support, and for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel and all that. And I did want to give a special shout out to Lisa from Arcane and Stellar and Nat Hughes from Nat Hughes Tarot, because the two of them have they've been really supportive, and it was something that the last year of my life has been weirdly competitive with other people, and it's not something that I've been used to, and to have people just be really supportive and say like, hey, like, we see what you're doing, and that's really, really awesome. It means the world. So if either of you are watching, thank you so much. So a little bit about me. First of all, the speed of my voice, you can probably tell, for those of you who speak astrology, that I am a Gemini sun in Western astrology. I'm a Leo rising, Gemini sun, Aries moon, and my Mercury is also in Gemini. My Venus is in Taurus, it opposes my Pluto in Scorpio, and my Mars is debilitated in Cancer in the 12th house, opposing my Neptune. Ugh. So, that will give you a lot of information about me. In Vedic, I'm a Taurus sun in Kritika. I am a Pushya rising, you can tell by these teeth, and that is in Cancer, and my moon is in Uttara Bhadrapada in Pisces. So that's for those of you who know what all that is. I am 32. I am married to a person called Alex, and he is wonderful. We're approaching our 4th wedding anniversary, but we've been together since 2011, so like 9 years. Wow. Honestly, it does not feel like that long, so I think that's probably a good sign. We met at a spiritual retreat center that we both lived and worked at and volunteered there. So we have the whole spirituality thing in common, and that kind of brings me to the overall topic of how I got into tarot. And when I was thinking about this, I'm a person who has kind of focused on spirituality throughout my life. So I've found myself in, spiritual places or groups, studying spiritual things. So I grew up in a Methodist family, and that is a Protestant denomination of Christianity. So even in Sunday school, I really attached to the stories of Jesus and the idea that we could all be the best people that we could be. And I very much, that's why I say the preaching thing, because I used to get told that as a kid a lot, that, Jess, you're preaching. But when I went off to college, I found myself studying religion for the first 2 years, because I thought perhaps I would want to be a pastor. But I had a massive breakdown in my faith and I'm not trying to talk about this to talk about, categories of faiths or anything like that. I'm just trying to share my story. The history of Christianity class for me, I had a massive, massive breakdown where I was learning about, the Crusades and the Inquisition, and just a lot of horrors that had happened around my religion. And so that really, I didn't know that I wanted to be a pastor anymore. And on top of that, I had to pay for school myself, and I was working a lot, and I had this sort of existential crisis about whether or not I was wasting my 20s, just like working all the time and going to school, and I really wanted to have an adventure. And I was super lost, and I was reading The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, because I thought if I wanted to know the truth, so I just kind of thought, might as well throw myself into it. But I really couldn't get through that book, because I just always have known that there's something bigger. There is, and in religious studies, a lot of times they call it ultimate reality. That's something that just kind of encompasses the term for what a lot of religions would call God. And so I was like, I read Elizabeth Lesser's book, Broken Open, and her email address is in the back of the book. And she co-founded a place called the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies. And I went there. I wanted to go so bad. It's a little out of my price range, and by a little, I mean a lot. But her email was in the back of the book. So I had written her and I said, I will like mop floors or whatever if you will just let me come to this place. And she wrote me back and she said, this is like a person who's been on Oprah, right? Like, I couldn't believe that. But she said there's a lot of people like you, and told me about their seasonal staff program. So that's the holistic retreat center I was talking about, and that's where I met my husband. And yeah, it's just going there, I really was thinking about, living a monastic life. I was wanting to dip my toes into other religions, because studying religion academically, which I highly, highly recommend, because you're not learning about religions from devotees of those religions. You're learning about it from the standpoint of like anthropology and even geology or things like that. And it's really, really fascinating to learn about other cultures. And that, as a Gemini, is Gemini being like that little busy bee that likes to pull from all different sources, that was just so nourishing and fulfilling for me. So I took that with me to Omega, and I got to be exposed to a lot of different religious traditions, participate in different kinds of ceremonies, and I was surrounded by a lot of tarot and astrology and yoga. But as I tend to do, I'm fond of saying that life is my favorite yoga. And I think that's actually been really healthy for me and my own journey in my life. Not that I don't enjoy other forms of yoga or other modalities or of meditation, anything like that. But to me, it just seems, let me get really cerebral about this like a Gemini would do, but it just seems that if the point of life is to get to know God or to have a spiritual experience of some kind, it doesn't matter like what you're doing or what you call it, or it just, everything in life is God, so you're getting to know God when you're just doing life. Like, wouldn't that be the way you would set it up if you were God and you wanted people to have a spiritual experience and know you? I hope that made sense, but that was kind of a realization I had. And so, as I'm prone to do, I kind of threw myself into the mundanities of it. There's a concept called seva, where you put yourself into your work, and I volunteered in the dining hall, which was not air conditioned, and I had, I feel really good when I like work hard. So that was definitely a spiritual experience in and of itself for me. And I maintain to this day that the thing that changed me the most and the most spiritual experience that I had was literally the 3 meals a day that I would have, just getting to talk to people, getting to listen to people, and getting to hear, because everybody comes from like all, different places and different backgrounds. And so when you can see how like the systems that they were born into, spiritual or otherwise, or my cat's trying to steal her brother's food. You can see how people structure their thoughts around life and how they're relating to it. And that is something that changes me more than anything. And that is something that I feel like I'm hoping that I found in this tarot community too, because we all come from so many different places, and we're engaged in this very interesting process of, as Rachel Pollack in her book 78 Degrees of Wisdom calls it, creating synchronicity. And how I kind of think of it is tapping into that chaos principle, going to the beyond, where you're tapping into that deep, dark, divine feminine of chaos, where you don't necessarily have words to describe how something works, I'm thinking about Thor, where the Asgardians were explaining that what we call magic, they call science. And that just kind of hearkening to the idea that when you can see something has a definite result, but you don't have the language or the understanding to understand like how you got there, we tend to call those things magic, or we tend to call it magic, but it doesn't mean that it's not. It makes you interact with it in a relational kind of a way, that like, what are you? What is this? And approach something with curiosity and receptivity And that's what I love so much about tarot, and why I feel so lucky to be able to do this with all of you, is because it's such a two-way street, you know? It is such a living process. There we go. In Christianity, that's like kind of a phrase that people talk about, as having a living relationship with God and like a living process. And that's what I appreciate about tarot. And it was also a place where I could ground a lot of the things that I learned, you know, in my religious studies program, because I tend to think, that's why I'm fascinated. I think I mentioned this in another video. I'm fascinated with like the 4 colors myth, because that is a myth that somehow or other you find everywhere. How? Unless it's true. Unless there's some part of it that's true. And that's another thing, you know, in astrology, there's the whole theory of we're evolving into the highest vibration of our sun sign, and we can do that through leaning into our north node. And as a Gemini, the fall happens in Ardra, the fall of man, Adam and Eve, right? So I am kind of fascinated with creation stories. And maybe that's, you know, a coincidence that that's what astrology says, and I just am a person who happens to be fascinated with creation stories and this burning need to get to the bottom of it. But that is definitely a part of my spiritual journey, is curiosity, and I'm also like a food mixer. I like to mix things, you know, so I like to hear what a lot of cultures and religions have to say, because when you hear that like undercurrent of truth in those things, I get really excited, you know, and so that's kind of tarot for me, and being pictorial archetypes that illustrate life or the spiritual process, a conscious evolution, whatever you want to call it. When I was looking at these cards, when I was first starting to kind of dabble in it, and I started to dabble in it in a time in my life where I was going through a lot of hardship and uncertainty, and I needed answers beyond, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. So I started to dabble in these kind of creating synchronicity kind of processes, and being kind of intrigued at the very least, and just blown away in other instances at the insights I was able to gain for myself. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded, and yeah, so it's definitely, I look at this as a process for me. They say that there's something about like love what you do and love it in front of other people. So I'm trying to engage with that process as well. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I did study religion for the first 2 years, and then I did finish my degree in psychology. We'll see. But this is definitely, it just feels like such a natural outgrowth of the entirety of my life and who I am and the things that I'm interested in. And every time I put out a video, it gives me an opportunity to confront my own spiritual journey and to walk my own spiritual journey, you know? Getting nervous about, oh, is this video gonna resonate? Or, you know, and how it brings up my anxiety, and it's something that I know I need to confront and work through my own self. And so I'm definitely learning right along with you guys, and I think that makes it so beautiful. So thank you again for coming along on this journey with me. I hope I didn't sound like too much of a goob or ramble too much, and I hope you can't hear my cat drinking. But personal readings too, I am going to offer those. I just want to make sure that I'm super organized, and that I'm kind of taking this in bite-sized pieces, and you know, moving along one step at a time. There's been a lot of talk in the tarot community about, you know, really getting your intention right for those of us who are doing this, and it's something that I'm listening to and I'm taking very seriously. So yeah, I'm trying to move forward in consciousness and in grace and in strength. So thank you guys so much for your love and support. I hope to see you around my channel again. And I remember thinking like, realizing that my mom was going to die before me, and wondering if I could, you know, somehow tastefully like make her into a coffee table or something, so that I could like just have her around. So anyways, I have discovered that I'm a super awkward person in trying to make this things all very difficult to talk about, because I'm just a woman in her living room talking to her camera about herself, and it's completely fine. So like, isn't this weird? I have this moment a lot. I'm sure you guys have something like this, where like I'll just look at my hands and I'll be like, What is this? How did I get in here? What?
Are you just fiddling with it?
Yeah. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just sitting here like having a stroke. Like,
Well, maybe give yourself something to play with.
well, I have my rock. And I like for real and for true, like just loved Jesus. Not because anybody told me to, not because I just thought he was a really cool dude. And I would hear the stories about how he treated people and the things that he was able to do and the way that he was telling everyone to love each other and stuff. I just was like, that guy's pretty rad. Sorry about that plane. I'm telling intimate stories about my life. Luna, loop, loop, Luna. Loop, loop, loop. All right, can't get weirder than that.